Please be seated. The court is now back in session, and we will hand the floor to the lead co-lawyers for civil parties to continue presenting their key documents in relation to joint criminal enterprise. You may proceed.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon to you and to everyone else present in this courtroom. I will continue my presentation on the policy regarding cooperatives and work sites. This morning, I referred to one of the decisive elements, the objective of increasing production. I would now like to talk about the second objective that has already been dealt with by the co-prosecutor. Cooperatives allowed surveillance and detection of enemies. That was the objective. I will start by dealing with document D22/2751. It is a civil party who at the time resided in Takeo. The ERN for these documents is as follows: 00899639 in French and 00873677 in English. And lastly, in Khmer, it is 00556118. The quotation is very short, and the civil party says as the following, and I quote: "There, my family and myself were constantly called the 17 April people. We were forced to work harder than the base people," and base people is in parentheses, "and we received less food than the base people." End of quote. I would now like to refer to Civil Party Application D22/1242, and the ERN in French is 00906225. In English, 00891214. And in Khmer, it is 00523379. And this is a civil party who at the time lived in Kampong Snam. And this is what the civil party says, and I quote: "When someone was ill and could not go to work, the Khmer Rouge said that the illness was in the head. And when people had to rest in the evening, the head of the militias surveilled all houses, one after the other, confiscated personal effects such as watches and money. That person also sought to know what our past and positions had been under the Long No regime." End of quote. Further down, the civil party states the following, and I quote: "Those who were evacuated were called 17 April people, and they were observed all the time." I will now refer to the Civil Party Application D22/143. This civil party was in Kampong Tom at the time. The ERN in French is 00898347. In English, 00402949. And in Khmer, 365377. And this civil party refers to the terms used by the Khmer Rouge to define certain enemies. The terms were referred to by the co-prosecutor earlier as stated in the revolutionary flag and other documents, other official documents of the regime. That civil party states as follows, and I quote, "Those who were lazy were tortured by the Khmer Rouge and accused by Ankara." In the same vein, I will quote the statement of Civil Party D22/147. That person was in Svairien. The ERN in French is 00896817. In English, 00402961. And in Khmer, the ERN is 00368682. This civil party says the following, and I quote, "Mrs. Niang, my uncle Cap Niang's wife, told me that her husband had suffered from malnutrition and diarrhea. Not being able to work, she was accused of being lazy and was not given any medicines. He died as a result of that." End of quote. Still, with regard to the terms used in the policy of the Khmer Rouge, I'd like to talk about Civil Party D277/8. And the ERN in French is 00424136. English 00384787. And Khmer 00375548. This is the record of an interview by the co-investigating judges. And this is what that civil party states, and I quote, "I was maltreated when I was ill. The Khmer Rouge did not believe that I was truly ill. They accused me of being lazy. I was therefore punished." End of quote. I would like to refer to the Civil Party application D22/211 or 2011, I beg your pardon. That Civil Party was in Persat at the time. The ERN in French is 00900237. In English, 00893689 and 90. And in Khmer, it is 00541770. And this civil party states as follows, and I quote, "During the rice transplanting period, soldiers and Khmer Rouge militiamen constantly monitored inhabitants deported to Pakhot village because they were considered as 17 April people. They continued to declare that those who had been civil servants, traders, and students had to tell them the truth in order to return to their previous positions. As with time, the workers left and never came back. The civil servants left and never came back." End of quote. Lastly, I would like to refer to Civil Party D22/2014. Small a, the ERN is 00903-104 in French. In English, 00899065. In Khmer, 00580-736. And still on this subject, that is the control and detection of enemies, and the criteria for defining enemies is as follows, according to this civil party, and I quote: "When I lived in Che Commune in Chuk district, Kampot province, I was summoned to a meeting at Damnak Trang Pagoda, Chuk district, Kampot province. I went to that meeting. It was perhaps in 1977 when I participated at that meeting. All participants were asked to look at a man and two women who had flouted the moral conduct rules. The Khmer Rouge told us not to follow their example because all three of them were going to be killed." End of quote. I would now like to refer to another objective of the policy regarding cooperatives and work sites, an objective which was aimed at abolishing private life and developing collectivization. I would like to refer now to the statement of Civil Party D22/1644. The ERN in French is 00895187. In English, it is 00891247 and 48. In Khmer, it is 00532347. This civil party refers to the division within families and in particular categories, and she says the following, and I quote: "In 1976, the Khmer Rouge militiamen divided us into groups according to physical strengths. My family was divided. There were 7 of us in the family: my father, my mother, myself, my younger sister, my niece, my son and daughter. My 2 children were sent to the children's unit. My niece remained with her grandmother, and I went to the middle age group. My sister, Ted Pick, was in the itinerant group." End of quote. I would like to talk about the statement of Civil Party D22/2903. The ERN is 00779605 in French, and in English it is 00779605 and 06. And in Khmer it is 00558351. That civil party talks about collective meals and states as follows, and I quote: "In early 1976, we were not authorized to eat in our homes, which means that the little food that was left and any other personal effects were confiscated by Ankar and put in common in the cooperative. Private ownership was no longer authorized. We were ordered to eat in common in the same kitchen End of quote. I would now like to talk about Civil Party D22/3755, and the ERN in French is 00892710. In English, 00892762, and Khmer 00875009. This civil party also refers to Khmer Rouge speeches regarding collectivization, and she states, and I quote, "The Khmer Rouge settled us in that village in the heart of the forest and asked us to build our huts ourselves. We were fed collectively, and no one was authorized to eat alone. They assigned tasks to us, the men, the women, the elderly, and children, all mixed up, from dawn to dusk, up to 22 hours before we were allowed to rest." End of quote. I would now like to talk about Civil Party D22/524. That civil party was at the time residing in Battambang. That civil party also talks about the division of families. The French ERN is 00897129. In English, 00890599. And in Khmer, 00496952. I will not read any extract of that civil party statement. Let me simply state that she says that the Khmer Rouge imposed the division of families and separation of family members. And lastly, this is the last document on cooperatives and work sites. I'll refer to Civil Party D22/836. That civil party during that period was in Kandal region. The ERN in French is 00860969. In English, 00893532. And in Khmer, 00504601. That civil party states the following, and I quote, "We were peasants. The Khmer Rouge troops confiscated the personal effects of the inhabitants to give them to the collective, and they ordered everyone to dress in black." End of quote. I'm done with this policy, and I'll now talk about policy on education, specifically the education of bad elements and the elimination of enemies. Here again, I will dwell on each of the decisive elements regarding the objectives of this policy as already expounded upon by the co-prosecutor. I would like to start by referring to the statement of Civil Party D22/1557, and the ERN in French is 00905218. In English, 00888-498, and in Khmer, 0053-003-91 and 92. This civil party states the following, and I quote, "We had to say whether or not in the past we had been civil servants, soldiers, or students. They told us to tell the whole truth, and if we did so, we'll be allowed to return to our previous positions." That meeting was chaired by a person called Bin. My brother-in-law owned up that he had been a soldier in the Long Nol Army. Those who unveiled their past were sent for re-education to help rebuild the country. And since then, they have never returned. End of quote. Further down in the statement, the civil party states as follows: 1 or 2 months after the death of my younger sister in early 1976, Anka asked us for the second time to unveil our previous professions, and if we told the truth, Anka would send us for further training in order that we could help develop the country. End of quote. I would now like to talk about the statement of Civil Party D22/2896. The ERN in French is 00807-149 in French. In English, 00793363, and in Khmer 00558233. This civil party states as follows, and I quote, "On the 17th of April 1975, as everyone is aware, is the day of the victory won by the Khmer Rouge armed forces over the Marshal Long Nol Army. Subsequently, they applied a policy of division and evacuation of the people. The people were divided into several groups. The 17 April people on the one hand and Long Nol civil servants on the other. They questioned the latter on their previous positions, promising to reinstate them in their previous positions and functions. So those who wanted to have work exaggerated their duties and responsibilities, saying that they worked in this or that ministry. After the questioning, the Khmer Rouge sent them to be killed, claiming that they were sending them for further re-education. The word re-education was indeed a synonym for execution. That was the first phase in their plan. As for further stages, they purged the 17 April people. End of quote. I refer to the statement of Civil Party D22/623. The ERN in French is 00849889. In English, 00893530. And in Khmer, the ERN is 00499873. I will not read any extracts from this civil party's statement. Let me simply say that this civil party refers to the existence of the policy to establish security centers across Cambodia during that period. End of quote. I will now talk about re-education of bad elements and the elimination of enemies. I'll talk about another topic, that is the definition of the notion of enemies. As already referred to by the co-prosecutors. And I will refer to the statement of Civil Party D 277/6. French ERN 00426411. In English, 00377369. And in Khmer, it is 00375525. This civil party states as follows, and I quote, I was able to see a number of people being arrested. We were told that those people had been sent for re-education and to be corrected. However, we never saw them return. We knew at the time that to send someone for re-education, to send someone to be corrected, simply meant that you were being sent to be executed. The inhabitants were arrested if they stole food or if their biographies were bad, which in other words meant that they had been civil servants in the previous society. End of quote.
J'évoque maintenant.
I now refer to Civil Party D22/452, who was living in the region of Cartier during the time of the events. The ARNs in French are 00813223. English ERN is 00818604. And in Khmer, 00495978. This particular civil party states as follows, and I quote, during work hours, the militiamen would observe us constantly. If we said anything inappropriate, we would be called for re-education. The mere fact of saying that we were tired was cause for condemnation. Further on, the same civil party adds, and I quote, during the night, we had to stand guard, protect the dams in order to be on the lookout for enemies. We were not armed. We were only given a knife and an axe. During the nighttime patrol, we were still under surveillance of the militiamen, and they were making sure that we were saying only the proper things and making sure that we were being vigilant and attentive. We were responsible for any type of negligence that would have occurred during our tour of duty. We were also vulnerable to being accused of being CIA. In my group, as in others, we remained vigilant and we never slept. The group leader came every 3 days to make sure that we had carried out our tasks in conformity with the work plan given to us. I wish to now quote from D22/3744. ERN is 00491077 in French. The English ERN is 00889676, and in Khmer, 875443. The civil party indicates the following. The communists, and I quote, the communists were threatening us constantly. They had intended to execute all members of the New People during the regime. In specific terms, they told us, there is no gain to keep you. There is no loss to annihilate you. End of quote. They accused the New People of exploiting their work, and therefore they were sought for extermination. I will now quote from Civil Party D22/32. The ERN in French is 00899928. English 00332219. And in Khmer, the ERN is 00279752. I read out this passage not to necessarily establish the implementation of policies, but to demonstrate the terms that were used at the time. The Civil Party states as follows. Further on during the same year of 1978, my father stole some gruel that was meant for pigs. He did so to feed my mother and I. The day that he was caught, he was sent to a re-education camp. For the same reasons, I will quote from D22/3765, who also refers to theft as a way of labeling enemies. The ERN in French is 00892711 in French. In English, the ERN is 00892763. And in Khmer, the ERN is 00875010. The Civil Party stated, and I quote, with respect to other Khmers, I saw the Khmer Rouge take them for execution. They did so merciless, and they did so because these people had been accused of stealing bamboo or palm leaf or a chicken. There was one particular person who had stole one single grain of rice in order to make soup. 2 of my sons were executed because they had stolen some food in order to satiate their hunger. End of quote. And lastly, with respect to the subject of the definition of enemies, I wish to quote from D22/1644. ERN in French is 00895189. That's the ERN in French. The ERN in English is 00891250. And in Khmer, the ERN is 00532-329. Once again, on the topic of theft, the Civil Party stated as follows. One of my nephews, Tep Pruyam, who was from the itinerant unit for children, he was the son of Tep Chim, was accused of stealing a chicken. The other children had announced him. The police took him to a re-education or detention center. Your Honors, I wish to open a new subject. It is Still on the policy of the elimination of enemies and definition of policies, it deals with the definition and methods of identification of enemies within the cooperatives. The first document that I will quote from is D22/268. And I beg your pardon because I will be obliged to quote the document in English as there is no French translation for the time being. The ERN in English is 00893383. Khmer is 00534560. This civil party says as follows.
Those Khmer Rouge soldiers were very good at investigating. They went around asking and searching for those citizens who were doctors, teachers, soldiers, military personnel or professors, and then killed them and their whole families. I knew that my husband's biography could not be concealed forever. Je voudrais maintenant.
I shall now quote from D22/1414. The civil party was living in Persat during the Khmer Rouge regime. The ERN in French is 00893960. The English ERN is 00891235. The Khmer ERN is 00528133. This particular civil party says, and I quote, "They were regularly spied upon by younger soldiers. My family was labeled April 17th people. My parents were spied upon whenever they made a move. They asked my younger siblings what our parents did, and they told our siblings that if our siblings disclosed such information, they would be given an important position. They were quite talented at spying. From the elder, or the elderly children, or the younger children were always tricked into the maneuver. They were told in the countryside that all merchants, professors, soldiers, or anyone who was considered as such could return to their workplaces. So people would reveal what they did as a profession, and then they were taken away in various and several vehicles. I will now quote from D22/3772. The civil party was living in Katier and then in Kompong Cham during the time of the facts. The ERNs in French are 00846053. In English, the ERNs are 00569922 to the following page, 23, and in Khmer, 00863960-61. The civil party claims as follows. After a month, I was pinned as an anti-communist, and I was told that I would be sent to the mountains in order to be re-educated on communism. Further on, the civil party states the following. Following our arrival at Kompong Cham, they organized a massive rally of 2,000 people. They compelled us to have faith in Angkor, that we work hard for Angkor, and that we show proof of humility and selflessness. Further on, the civil party says 2 times a year we were told to tell our village chief our life stories in order to make sure that nobody was lying. They had accused some people of lying, and for those who they did not like, they were weeded out during the night, taken away, and we never saw them again. I will now quote from D22/328. The ERN in French is 00901469. In English, the ERNs are 00864442, and in Khmer 00484726. The civil party states as follows. Later on, the Khmer Rouge called several people to an assembly, and here the reports that they had drawn up. Comrade Chim, chief of the village, said during the assembly that those who had been arrested previously had resisted. Open quote, I don't know who they were against. Close quote. This is the reason why we had to eliminate them. And we were told, you all have to be careful from here on in. Anyone could be against us. If anyone did show any opposition, they could be executed like the enemies. End of passage. I will now quote from D22/1836, small a. I beg your pardon, I will have to quote from the English version since there is no French translation. The civil party was living in Kompong Cham. When the civil party made the statement, the ERN in English is 00834848, and in Khmer it is 00579044. The civil party states as follows.
En anglais. Then, in 1977, the Khmer Rouge accused me of being the former civil servant feudalist. They did my biography and sent me and my family to Mondolkiri. Je vais maintenant évoquer la partie civile.
I shall now refer to the document D/227, which is an interview given before the co-investigating judges. The French ERN is 0037205253. In English, 003502-04, and in Khmer, 00349497. The document is D217/3. I stand corrected. In response to a question put to the civil party, did the Khmer Rouge leaders in your village already begin questioning people and arresting them? Did they assign hard labor tasks to people? Did they respect the rights of the residents? The civil party responds as follows. At the time, the Khmer Rouge did not met out bad treatment. They told people that they had to work. Those who had worked for the Lano regime be educated and reveal themselves. And those who did were taken for re-education. The second passage from the witness record of interview, whose ERN numbers I've just read out, refers to the self-criticism meetings. The following question is put to the civil party. Did you ever attend a self-criticism session? Answer. There were self-criticism sessions during which residents would tell the Khmer Rouge who among the residents were too lazy to work. There were people who were denounced. There were those who were denounced twice and who didn't change their behavior, and therefore they would be sent by the Khmer Rouge for execution.
Je vais maintenant aborder un autre élément déterminant.
I shall now move to a new piece of evidence that shows the establishment of this policy and the elimination of enemies, including family members and loved ones. I will begin by quoting from D22/193, French ERN 0044658888. English ERN is non-existent for the time being. Or rather, I will be quoting from the English translation and not the French, because there is no French translation. The English ERN is 00446488, and in Khmer it is 00388697. There are no French ERNs. The civil party says as follows.
1977, I was removed from the community and placed in a work site where the relatives of the traitors work. The work site was far from the community. Je vais citer maintenant la partie civile.
I shall now quote from document D22/342. The French ERN is 00920506. The English ERN is 00864551. And Khmer is 00484873. This civil party stated as follows, and I will specify that the civil party was living in Kompong Cham at the time. I quote, July 1978, 16 of my members of my loved ones were massacred by Angkor, by the Khmer Rouge. They were accused of being members of the Sopim network, a Khmer Rouge leader who had been accused of betraying revolutionary Angkor.
Je vais maintenant citer la partie civile.
I shall now quote from Civil Party E3/3963. The ERN in French is 00333881. The English ERN is 00242251, and the Khmer ERN is 009840. Or rather, I'm sorry, I'll have to begin again. The Khmer ERNs, the speaker says, is 00198403. The Civil Party writes as follows: it was a prison without walls. There were only women and children or new people, or quote-unquote April 17 people. They were given only rice porridge. I will now quote from D22/3461. The Civil Party talks about what happened to the families of Lon Nol soldiers or Lon Nol officials. The ERN in French is 00859055. English ERN is 00856522. Khmer ERN is 00566393. The Civil Party writes as follows 7 days later. The Khmer Rouge found out that my husband was a soldier under the previous regime. They therefore came to arrest me. Mr. President, I have concluded my documents with respect to the policy on bad elements and enemies. I can begin my document presentation on the policy of treatment of targeted groups, but I am more than happy to oblige if you wish to call for the break now. Before I begin,
The President, how much time would you need to present all the remaining documents, please?
I will speak to 2 remaining policies, and if I've calculated my time properly, I've taken 20 minutes this morning and 55 minutes this afternoon. I should expect to use up the same amount of time. I don't know if I shall finish this afternoon, and if it is not the case, I will have no more than 30 minutes during tomorrow's morning session.
The President, thank you. It is now appropriate moment for the adjournment. The Chamber will adjourn until 15 to 3